So, how is it that you sharpen a knife? And specifically for this video, why is it that you use water? Why is it that you use a whetstone? Do you need to use water all the time? Well, those are the things I'll try to answer in this video. Guys, keep in mind, I'm no expert in sharpening knives. I just do a decent enough job just to get my tools cutting the way I want, and that's basically it. I just finished sharpening this knife for my Spanish channel, by the way. Guys, my Spanish channel has over 230,000 subscribers. I'm trying to grow my subscribers here in my English channel, which, by the way, has been around for longer. So I would really would appreciate if you take a second to subscribe here to the channel, especially if you've been around for a while. Just helps out a lot with YouTube and all of the internal aspects of having a YouTube channel. You're taking more seriously the more subscribers you have, and sometimes that can be quite useful. So just 1 second, click on the thing. You'll also get notifications for future videos if you click on the bell button as well. This knife has already been sharpened enough that I'm not going to be complaining about it. No, it's not perfect, but it is what it is. And being in a drawer, punching, scrambling in there with a bunch of other cutlery, not going to be worrying all that much about that. This other knife, though, this one probably needs a lot of, well, maybe not a lot, but maybe a little bit. Oh, well, actually, I think I sharpened this one. Okay, this one is, it could be better. Anyway, we're going to use this as an excuse and then check things out how they work. So in case you're wondering, I'm using a very basic stone. This is a 600 and 1500, right? Let's go with a 600. This is pretty coarse. This is just to maybe fix up a few little chips or little things, nothing too big, but any little thing that needs to be fixed, that's what you're going to be using for. In case you're wondering, is it this the way you have to go? Is it that? No, the other way. Whatever it is you're doing, this comes down to something very simple, which is you're just removing material from both sides of the blade, right? You want to have a plane on one side and a plane on the other, and when those two planes come together, that's your edge, right? The more narrow that is, the sharper it will be. The wider it is, the stronger it will be, but it will not cut as well, even though you will be surprised by, even in an axe, you can have something that cuts very well if it's sharpened properly, but it is also true that it's stronger, but it will not cut for as long as a more narrow angle. That may seem a little bit anti-intuitive, but the reality is that the smaller the angle, the more steel needs to be lost up until the point of which the apex is just too fat to cut. If you go already with a big angle, you round up that edge a lot faster. That's basically a technical explanation as of what you're trying to do here when sharpening a knife. You can go this way. Keep in mind, I have the camera between my hands, so this is not ideal for me, but anyway. The idea here is to explain a few things. So you can go like this. I've seen people go like, oh, I don't like this one so much because there's a greater chance of you creating a little bit of a deformation on the edges. One of the things that you honestly do very often is I just go with this, man. I just go with this. This is a lot more forgiving in terms of you screwing up, and as long as you somewhat sustain that angle, you're likely to not make much of a big mess. Especially if you don't have always the best perfect technique. These circles, very forgiving. This thing, not so much. In fact, even if you do it perfectly well, you see what happens? You're going to be scrapping the edge on one side of the stone or another. So avoid doing that. If you want to go like this, slicing into the stone, that's usually very good. For many years, I did this. And this also works, but you know what it doesn't do when you have a little bit of a burr? When you do this, you're just moving the burr from one side to the other. You're still sharpening this thing, but you still end up with a burr that needs to be removed, and that's where you go like so. When you do this, you're cutting against that little burr, and it will fall off in short notice, right? But this thing, like this works okay. Now, as you see, I'm not wetting the stone right now, and I already did actually, but let's put a little bit more water. So why is it that you put water on the stone? Well, if you know something that I don't and you want to leave your thoughts in the comments below, always more than welcome. I'm sure there's a bunch of things that you know that I don't, so yeah, go ahead. Tell me what you have in mind. I'd be more than happy to listen to what you have to say. It gets to a point where it's completely soaked, and being as porous as you see it is, it just keeps, losing the water. Now, why is it you wet this stone? Well, some of these are called whetstones, so it kind of makes sense that you want to have that stone wet. One of the first things you probably heard is lubrication. You want to have some sort of lubrication for the stone to work better, right? Is that true? Well, kind of, yes. I do notice that when you have, when the stone is wet, it kind of slides a little bit nicer, a little bit better. So there may be something about that. So number one, lubrication, yeah, could well be. It is true also that you can perfectly sharpen a knife even if it's really not all that lubricated, right? The other thing I've noticed over the years is that when you have the stone a little bit wet, and some people use oil for lubrication, but once you have a stone that is wet and you worked it a little bit more, maybe not this type of more ceramic-y kind of stone, but some of these will eventually have like a little bit of a slurry, a little bit of a paste, depending on the stone you're using. Some are more pasty prone than others, right? But when you have that bit of a paste, what you notice is that little bit of a paste actually polishes and leaves a nicer edge. That's also something that comes to mind, and there is something to be said about that nice little polishing paste that you have with a bit of water. Again, it's going to be depending on the stone or sharpening implement that you're using, but usually that's something to be said. Now, the third thing, which I think is by far the most important, you have to use water to clean the stone, because it is something that's going to be leaving particles, residue, little particles of metal. So you actually have to wash the stone to remove all of those. Now, in case you haven't seen some of my other videos, this is not what I use the most to sharpen my knives. Even these knives, what I use the most is this thing, right? Something like this. These things are great because it makes this super fast. All you have to do is, instead of setting things up, I just go like this, man. I just go like this. Yep, one side, the other. Again, it is a simple matter of removing material in the right angle until those two planes meet, and the cleaner of a job you did in removing the material at the same angle, the sharper this will be. And I guess that's kind of it. There's not a whole lot more than that. You can go with extra steps as to make it more fine or more, I don't know. That's not the best, but it's not terrible. And if you want to go a little bit more, you can definitely do that. Keep on going for that angle. The circles are the thing that has given me the best results. It's maybe one of the more effective motions, right, in terms of removing material fast, going like that with these circles, right? More of an elliptical rather than a circle. And I've seen manuals that say just that. I've seen manuals. I've seen manuals that say one thing, manuals that say another. Some of them that I've read, some books that I've read, talk about going like this in a straight line, right? Or just others going with the slicing, right? In my own book, in Street Survival Skills, where I explain sharpening, I just say go like that. Do this. This is pretty effective and again, as I said before, it is quite forgiving for your screw-ups, which you most likely will have. Sharpening and keeping the angle always perfect, very difficult. And these circles are pretty forgiving when it comes to that sort of stuff. But again, regarding why is it that you want to have your stone wet, it's mostly about keeping it clean. Lubrication, yes. They know the stone is specifically a kind of stone that works better when wet, sure, depending on the stone. But most of all, and you know how I learned that? By using these things. Now, these things are great, but, and then again, I use these all the time. The thing is, once you start using them pretty often, they start packing up. And by that I mean all of those particles start getting into the little you know, the grits, the little holes that this thing has. It starts packing that up. I don't know if I'm getting the camera angle right. Let me see there, about there. Okay, maybe. All right, so there you go. You see how this side is a lot more shiny than this other one. This one looks a lot more like matte gray, not as reflective this one. So you see all of those particles. Those particles that come out of the steel of the knife, they start filling up those little holes and depressions, and that texture, right, starts getting more smooth the more you do this. The more you sharpen the knife, the more you start leaving those little particles on that texture, and the more smooth it becomes. And that means that it simply will not sharpen, it will not eat, it will not bite into the steel as well as it did before. Simple solution, a little bit of water, and what I do is a little bit of detergent, just a, you know, half of a drop of detergent, soaping it up a little bit, and then, you know, rinsing it, and you will go back to having the stone with a bit more of a texture when you run your finger on it than the smooth one where you have all of those metal deposits. So this is, again, easy, simple, this is super compact, and most of all, it freaking works, which is all I care about. So doing this on one side a little bit, doing this on the other. I mean, you could take more of your time and go for a finer edge with a 1500 stone or even more. There's people that go nuts on this. I just want something that will cut, man. I'm not all that demanding, especially on something that's in my kitchen that's gonna go against ceramic plates, for crying out loud. Why would I waste time trying to get a perfect edge on something that was gonna go against a ceramic plate all week long, right? You see how it bites and how it gets the job done. And then remember to always, you know, you want to remove all of those little particles, and you can use like a stick or something, even using a little bit of plastic like this, just running it against the edge so as to remove a little bit of those little metal barbs that are left there. It's not a burr, it's not a wire edge. You're not going to be removing a wire edge doing that, but those little particles and barbs, those, yeah, just wipe it against a stick or a piece of plastic, and that's going to be leaving it mostly a matter of cleaning the edge, and that's where it's probably going to run a lot better, as you see right now. Guys, that's how you sharpen a knife using different techniques. The ones I use the most that are working for me, and that's why you want to wet or clean mostly your sharpening stone. That's going to be all for now. See you on our next video. Take care.